You know, every single time you shop online or stream a movie or even just send a text message, you are creating data. Our entire world is literally built on information. But have you ever stopped and wondered, who keeps it all running? Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the unseen guardians of our digital world. Let's kick things off by just trying to wrap our heads around the massive scale of the world they manage.
So the scale of this data, it's just mind-boggling. I mean, we're not talking about gigabytes or even terabytes anymore. We're talking about yottabytes. So what is a yottabyte? It's a trillion terabytes. To even try and put that into perspective, a single yottabyte could store the entire content of the Library of Congress millions and millions of times over. It is the absolute foundation of our modern lives.
Okay, so with all that information, all that data flying around, how on earth does it stay secure from some kind of disaster? How is it kept so neatly organized that we can find exactly what we need? And how is it delivered to our screens in milliseconds? Who is making sure this incredibly complex system doesn't just, collapse into total chaos?
While the answer lies with a type of professional you've probably never heard of, but whose work you rely on every single day, the database administrator, or for short, the DBA. You can think of them as the architects, the librarians, and the security guards of our digital world all rolled into one.
Yeah, and at the very heart of their job is this simple but absolutely critical idea. They have to keep a constant watch over the system's health without actually getting in the way. It's kind of like being a security guard who can see everything that's happening but is completely invisible, just making sure everything runs smoothly behind the scenes. They are truly the silent protectors, and they are always on watch. So, what does a DBA actually do? Let's start with their first major role: bringing order to what would otherwise be total chaos. Imagine them as the chief librarian for a digital library that's infinitely huge.
Look, if your library only has a dozen books, a simple list on a spreadsheet is perfect, right? It's easy, it works, you can see everything you need at a glance. We've all done it. But what happens when your library has millions or even billions of books?
Yeah, that's when you need a much more powerful system. And for that, DBAs use a specialized language called SQL. That's SQL, or Structured Query Language. And as you can see from just this little diagram here, it's not just one thing. It's a whole toolkit of commands designed to build, manage, and talk to these gigantic databases. And SQL itself has different parts. So DBAs use something called DDL, or Data Definition Language, to design the structure of the library, building the shelves, the sections, the whole layout. Then they use DML, or Data Manipulation Language, to actually put the books on the shelves, update them, and grab them when they're needed. But what good is a perfectly organized library if you can't find anything, right? How do you find one specific piece of information among billions of others and do it instantly? Well, the secret is something called an index. It's just like a library's old-school card catalog. An index is a special lookup guide that tells the database exactly where to find the info you need, making searches incredibly fast. Okay, but a perfectly organized, super fast library is totally useless if it burns to the ground. And that brings us to a DBA's second major job: creating the ultimate safety net to protect all that data from any kind of disaster. A DBA first has to decide on something called a recovery model. You can think of this as choosing an insurance policy for the data. And the choice they make is all about balancing performance and safety. The simple model is faster but a bit riskier. But the full model, it captures every single change, making sure that for, say, a critical banking system, not a single transaction is ever lost.
So, based on that insurance policy, DBAs create layers of protection. They start with a full backup, a complete copy of absolutely everything. Then they add on differential backups, which just save the changes made since that last big one. And for the highest level of safety, they use transaction log backups. These capture every single change, which lets them restore a database to a specific second in time. It's amazing.
All right, so the data is organized and it's safe, but is it fast? That brings us to the third core responsibility of a DBA: performance tuning. This is where they become part mechanic, part scientist, all to keep the database engine running at absolute peak speed. And this gives you just a tiny glimpse of the complexity they're dealing with. Every single one of these little options can affect how the database performs. DBAs have to fine-tune hundreds of these settings, managing everything from memory to how data gets processed, all to shave those precious milliseconds off of response times.
And it's not a one-time thing. No way. It's constant, ongoing maintenance.
Every single week, DBAs are doing things like reorganizing and rebuilding those indexes we talked about, our digital card catalogs, just to keep them running efficiently. They're also updating statistics, which gives the database the latest info it needs to make smart, fast decisions on its own.
So, after all that, why does any of this really matter to you? What is the actual, real-world impact of having these dedicated guardians watching over all our data?
Well, without a DBA, we would be living in a world of potential chaos. Think about it. Critical data could be lost forever. The websites and apps you use every day would be painfully slow, and entire systems could just fail. The DBA is the person who delivers the exact opposite. Data safety through backups, high performance through all that tuning, and system stability through constant, vigilant maintenance.
At the end of the day, it really all comes down to this. In an economy that runs on information, the DBA is the absolutely crucial link that makes sure an organization's most valuable asset, its data, is safe, accessible, and powerful enough to drive its success. They're the quiet professionals, working tirelessly behind the scenes. And as our digital universe keeps expanding at this explosive rate, it kind of leaves us with one final thought. Who's going to step up to become the unseen guardians of tomorrow's data?